Can the Houston Texans make the Super Bowl? That is the question we are trying to answer today, breaking down everything about the Houston Texans, going through their schedule game by game, week by week. How many wins, how many losses, and will they hit that number in the top right corner, the Vegas win total for Houston, which is 9.5? If you think they're going over, that's a 10-7 team or better. If you think they're going under, 9.5 is pretty low for a team with a Super Bowl worthy defense. But there are question marks abound for this unit. Can they repeat what they did last season? That's what we're going to go through today as we break down the Houston Texans in part 13 of my 32-part series, going through every single NFL team, game by game, week by week, predicting every game on the slate. And we've fallen a little bit behind. That's on me. I got a lot going on, but we are now powering through, doing 3 teams today, all of them in the Texans AFC South: Houston, Indianapolis, and Jacksonville, the 3 real contenders for this division. We're breaking all those guys down today, trying to get through all 32 teams before we kick off. And if you're joining us live on YouTube, live on Facebook, give us a like, give us a subscribe, help the channel grow, but also join in on that comment section. Feel free to ask any questions you have about the Texans, who are faced with a boatload of injuries right off the bat. They already lost Jaden Higgins for the entire season, just traded for Kayshon Boutte. They're already trying to revamp this offensive line. There are injuries throughout this entire team, and that's pretty sad because last year, the last 2 years, the Texans have been in the bottom 10 in most injured units in the NFL. They were 25th in 2025 and 21st in 2024. Normally, you like to see those probability type numbers come back to the norm, but the Texans seem to be beset with injuries once again. Hopefully, the Tank Dells of the world can come back, because this Texans team, as we saw from the trade for Kayshon Boutte, is pretty desperate to try and add some help in those skill positions. But maybe they've done enough. Maybe they don't need to do any more, because last season they had some great numbers up there. Those probability numbers will come back to the norm. They were plus 17 in turnover differential. They were plus 16 in sack differential. They had a winning record in 1-score games. But that's what's going to happen when you have a defense as good as Houston. And that's why that Houston defense leads off the good, the bad, and the ugly, because the numbers that they put up last year were unbelievable. They did nothing wrong. They were second in the league in points allowed per drive, second in forcing punts, fourth in yards per drive, fourth in turnovers created per drive, but first overall in efficiency. They also didn't do bad versus anything the offense did. They were second in the NFL in yards per carry to the running back position, and second in pressure rate coming off of the edge. This man up top is an absolute genius when it comes to the defense. And what blew my mind when I was going through all my research, reading Warren Sharp's book, breaking down these Texans, is that this defense was as electric as ever. And yet they were 32nd. That's dead last in the league in diversity of scheme. You could call them Fox News. They did not change anything on the field at any time. They said, this is what we're going to run, and you can't beat it. And they were right. And so that unit did lose some people, did add some people, but I think they added more than they lost, especially through the draft, and we'll go through the roster in a second. This defense should be just as good, if not better, than it was last season. But what held them back from the top of the mountain of what they could achieve is that offense. And that's why it takes up both spots in the bad and the ugly, because I'm wondering if they have done enough to fix what has ailed them, because the numbers for this offense were flat out terrible. They were 30th in red zone appearances, 27th in touchdown per drive, 26th in punts, 27th in yards, 28th in overall efficiency, even with the number 1 turnovers per drive in the entire league. They did not turn the ball over in the regular season. And that will come up, that will not stay the same if we saw anything from the playoffs gives us any hope there. But with this offense being as bad, with them not turning the ball over, you have to hope that this guy, their offensive coordinator, Nick Caley, can change some things to make things a little bit easier, because nothing was really working out for this team. And they need the help When it comes to the wide receiver side, I understand they were working rookies into that unit, and Jaden Higgins going down is huge for them because they ran 11 personnel last season at the sixth highest rate. That's 3 wide receivers on the field. And with them losing wide receivers left and right, that Keyshawn Boutte acquisition needs to succeed because they want to run a lot of plays to the wide receivers. They were 8th in attempts to wide receivers last year, but only 22nd in air yards. Keyshawn Boutte could extend that play a little bit and give Nico Collins some help. But overall, they need to give CJ Stroud some help. And I think there's an easy fix to make this team a little bit more exciting. Last year, even with the offense being as bad as it was, CJ Stroud was 7th in the league in yards per attempt when this team used pre-snap motion. He was 10th in the league in yards per attempt when this team used play action. Yet they only ran motion and play action at a bottom 10 rate in the NFL. When there was no action, when there was no motion, CJ Stroud's yards per attempt crept down to 30th in the league. So if they can add some more motion, some more play action, and with the wide receivers, with Boutte there, with Dell hopefully being healthy, I think this team can really explode offensively because it needs to. This defense deserves it. And then on top of that, CJ Stroud needs to not do what he did in the 2 playoff games last season, where he had 2 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, just over 50% completion percentage, just over 230 yards per game passing. And in the last 4 playoff games, he's taken 17 sacks with only 17% pressure on his dropbacks. It's been terrible. He's been terrible. When facing the top tier competition, CJ Stroud has let this team down. And I am hoping with the changes that they've made, they can improve upon that unit because I think, especially when it comes to the red zone, this team has been begging for a running back to help CJ Stroud out. And I do think they have found the person to do that. So I'm going to jump ahead of the normal order, and I'm going to jump right into the fantasy target that I am looking at for the Houston Texans, and that is Mr. Montgomery. Right now, I believe he's going as the RB21 in best ball drafts on Underdog, around pick 47. This guy I've been targeting left and right because I think Monty, who is still under 30, was still a very good running back in the 2 stops that he had been. Did not play a lot last season, or I should say did not have as successful of a season last year. But if you look at what happened with that Detroit offensive line and what they normally try to do, there were failures all over the place. And this guy still, last season, even though the numbers were down, the counting stats were down, he was first in the league in EPA added per run in a man blocking scheme. So there's zone blocking, and man blocking runs. David Montgomery was the best running back in the world. And the Houston Texans last season under this new scheme ran the second most man blocking runs in the league, only behind Sean McVay and the LA Rams. So they went out and they spent a draft pick to acquire this man, pay him some money, and have him be the bell cow back for Houston. I understand they want to split the reps with Woody Marks. There's a lot of conversations about that out there. This guy is going to fall into the end zone double-digit times, just for how many times he's going to get the rock in this team. And it needs to be successful for that play action, for those pre-snap motions, for that passing game to work. I think Montgomery is an excellent addition. Plus, the additions they made in the draft to boost up this offensive line, I'd be drafting Monty left and right. That's the fantasy target I'm going for. But let's dive into the units here. And starting off with grading this roster, we are hold on. There it is. Now we get to grade the roster, starting off with the offense. And right there, let's start off with the quarterback room. CJ Stroud, Davis Mills, really solid backup behind CJ Stroud. But can Stroud take that leap into the next level? Can he come back to what he had during his rookie season? That's the big question mark when you look at this team, and the big one holding them back, because if he repeats what he did in the playoffs, then this team is in a lot of trouble. But I do believe Davis Mills, being a solid backup, brings this QB room to about a C. Now, the running back room, David Montgomery, Woody Marks behind him, not a lot of depth behind that. I think it's okay. Again, nothing to sniff about with the rotation there. You need Monty to be the volume back. I'm going with another C, C minus. The pass catchers, though, this is where the big question marks come. I think Nico Collins is absolutely a wide receiver 1. Tank Dell, if he's healthy, has shown to be as electric as can be, but after so many surgeries on his lower body, is he going to still have that athleticism? We don't know. And I think the Keyshawn Boutte acquisition was fantastic. I was expecting him to be traded out of New England, and I'm so happy he went to a team that needed him as desperately as Houston. I think Boutte is going to be a no doubt starter over the team that they have, especially with Jalen Noel pulling up for another injury here. Nico, Boutte, and Tank Dell all together with Dalton Schultz being a pretty solid tight end. Nothing jumps out other than Nico, but there's a chance that this team could have a B minus pass catching group. And then the offensive line, they brought in Braden Smith. They had Trent Brown starting over him already in the preseason games. And then Ursery on the outside there, the draft pick that they spent, who has really developed into a nice left tackle. I think the tackles are pretty solid. Nice rotation there. And then in the middle, man, Keelan Rutledge training to be a center, even though he played guard most of his collegiate career. And then a couple of old dudes, Ed Ingram and Wyatt Teller. I think this is a really solid offensive line. There's not a lot of depth here. Should injuries happen, they're relying a lot on people that have not developed the way they want to. But I think I wanted my Packers to draft Keelan Rutledge. I think that guy's an absolute mauler and a perfect interior offensive lineman for the 2026 NFL season, the way people are playing now. So I really like this offensive line. I think this is the strongest unit of any of the offense. So I'm giving it a B+. I do really, really like this offensive line, and I expect them to take a leap this season. And then defense, man. What more do you want? what more do you want? Starting right at the top, Will Anderson Jr. might be the best defensive player in all the land. They drafted Caden McDonald, who fell to them in the interior. Talk about an embarrassment of riches. They didn't need Caden McDonald, and yet he's perfect for the age of this Houston defense. He's perfect to fit in there and be a rotational guy now that grows into an all-time starter later. And then Jadeveon Clowney, Logan Hall, guys that they're signing off the scrap heap here to just be supplemental dudes on this D-line. It is fantastic. It is fantastic. Yeah, it's an A. It's an A. The edge is perfect. I guess I take away an A+ because I'm not a huge Sheldon Rankins guy. But if Caden McDonald becomes the next dude, then it's an A+ D-line. The linebackers are a little bit suspect just based on injury. But again, when everyone's healthy here, especially if they have that 4th-round pick or even the 7th-round pick come up to be players with the injuries on the team, then it could be great. But I'm giving the off-ball linebackers probably a B-. And then when you get to the defensive back core, I struggle to find anyone better. I really do. I think Derek Stingley is underappreciated as a shutdown corner. I think Stingley is unbelievable. And then Reed Blankenship, I think, was a great signing out of Philadelphia here. They spent a lot of money on him. And I think he's the perfect guy for what they need. Like, he doesn't need to be the playmaker that he was in Philadelphia because of all the playmakers already on this unit. And next to Bullock, I think this is going to be a fantastic safety duo. I love the cornerbacks. I would hate to play this team. I would hate to be in this team's division. The defensive back core gets a A- for me. But this might be, on paper, the best defense in the NFL, especially with the D-line depth that they've now brought in. And the question remains, how many games are they going to win? Because 9.5, as you see on that number in the top right corner, that is the current Vegas win total for this Houston Texans team. And it's extremely low, in my opinion, because of what we just said on paper. This roster is pretty dang special. And then you look at the schedule and you start to figure out some reasons why the Texans have such a low 9.5 number. First off, don't look at the W's and L's right now. Those are from past videos, the results that I've done from the previous 12 parts of this series. Some of those might change as we go through this. And if that happens, we'll go change them on the other slides as well to make sure we have an equal number of W's and L's by the end of this whole entire thing. But at the very bottom, you can see the juice is on the over 9.5 here, minus 146, a terrible number, but that is the closest I saw from DraftKings. Over 10.5 is still plus money. Under 9.5, big plus money as well. To win the division, they are almost even to win the division, a shoe-in, as you would say. And they don't really have huge, great odds to win the AFC. I think they were 5th overall, but plus 850 to win the AFC. And when you look at the schedule, two things stand out to me. The first one being week 6 and week 7. It's an international game, divisional game at Jacksonville, week 6. It is in London. And then following right after that, they travel back home, don't have a bye week, and have to play the tough defensive line of the New York Giants at home immediately after that London game. I hate when teams don't have a bye after their international games, but that's what Houston is tasked to be. In that week 6 game with Jacksonville, Jacksonville's already been in London for week 5. So they don't have to travel across seas to play a game, to play a divisional game. Instead, they'll be waiting, eating crumpets and tea for Houston to arrive to play that game. So back-to-back rest disadvantages, big time travel disadvantages for Jacksonville, for the Jacksonville game and the Giants game. And then when you look at the end of the schedule there, I think that's the week 13 to week 18. That's 6 games. 4 of them are on the road. 3 of them, Houston has a rest disadvantage. Pittsburgh is a tough one. Sunday night football at Pittsburgh, -2 days rest disadvantage, and then at Washington, a short week road game. Both teams have the same rest, but Houston will struggle when it comes to traveling on that. It's a very difficult end of the season and a very difficult week 6 and 7. That being said, let's get into this schedule and predict the wins and predict the losses. Because first up here, man, when you get to Buffalo week 1 and Cincinnati at home week 2, what a homestand if you're a Texans fan, because those two teams, Buffalo and Cincy, I already did their videos. They both end up with double-digit wins in my predictions. And and that's with losses on those schedules to this Houston Texan team. So if you're a Texan season ticket holder, you're starting off with 2 absolute doozies. And I I made those predictions back when Houston was a lot healthier than they are now. But I do think that even with getting Keyshawn Boutte slowly getting acclimated here, I do think that run game and that defense will stifle the new look Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals O-line that will just let anybody get past them. So I'm keeping those 2 W's there. And then we get to at Indy and then a week 4 game versus Dallas. Dallas coming, same thing Houston has to deal with in week 7. Dallas, I believe, is coming off of a international game in week 3 and not having a bye in between. And then Indianapolis, we're going to do their video next. I don't want to spoil it. I think they stink. I think they stink. I think they lost so many people in free agency. I don't believe that they're going to be fully healthy at the beginning of this season. I think Indy's in a lot of trouble. And so we're going off of a 4-game win streak. We're keeping the Dallas victory, even though that's going to be might be the toughest game, week 4 Dallas, that Houston has in these first 4 weeks. And then we're at Tennessee, who I think is better this year, but we've seen them in the preseason be very surprising how terrible they were. The Tennessee started their starters in the preseason week 2 against Seattle. Seattle's playing their backups, and Drew Lock destroyed Tennessee, and Cam Ward couldn't move the ball against the backups. So maybe I'm wrong in my initial bird's eye view of Tennessee. I need to go a little bit deeper. That video will be coming at the end of this slate as we're doing it in alphabetical, but that's 5 straight victories for your Houston Texans in a win total that's only 9.5. And then we get at Jacksonville, New York Giants, quick turnaround. And this is where the losses start to come. And I do believe Houston's better than Jacksonville. I do believe Houston's better than the Giants. But the rest disadvantage really will be heavy here in both of these games. It's a very, very tough stretch. And so we're heading into the bye week, starting 5-0, but we end up 5-2 before we come out of the bye week and play the Los Angeles Chargers at SoFi Stadium, an extremely fun game. And we haven't done the Los Angeles Chargers video yet, but as you can see, Houston's coming off the bye. They get 7-day rest advantage versus the Chargers. The Chargers have 4 games on their schedule where their opponents are coming off of a bye. It's remarkable what Roger Goodell has done to the Los Angeles Chargers schedule this season. And because of that, I believe this is the 2nd game in a row that Los Angeles Chargers are playing a team coming off of the bye. Houston's going to win that game. And Houston also keeps that victory at Cleveland because whether it's Deshaun Watson, Dylan Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders, it doesn't matter. No Cleveland QB has beaten the Houston Texans defense. And then we come back to Indy, who should be healthier. We are 7-2 heading into week 11. Hopefully should be healthier because I want to see Daniel Jones be healthy and get back to full form. Alec Pierce, all those guys. I want to see that team succeed. Old man Keenan Allen, on a Thursday night divisional game. Again, Houston's just running through these crappy teams. And I still, even with full health, don't believe in the Indianapolis Colts, especially with CJ Stroud having a 5-1 record against Indy in his lifetime. I think we extend that to 6-1, 7-1. And again, Baltimore rest advantage to Houston. Baltimore from week 5 through 12 has I think 6 rest disadvantages during that midweek, middle of the season stretch. This being the end of it. Houston, because they play on Thursday, get that mini bye heading into it. I'm going to keep the W there, and we already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 wins. 9 wins in week 12, heading into week 13. 9 wins for a team that has a win total of 9.5. And I'm giving them a loss against the Giants. Like, I understand they could lose one of those Buffalo Cincinnati games early. I don't believe that they do, but you could trip up there. However, with the rest advantages against your 2 toughest opponents for the rest of it being Los Angeles Chargers and Baltimore and Dallas too in week 4, those are rest advantages for Houston in each of those 3 games, and they're the 3 toughest opponents on the schedule. And if you give a team with a defense as good as Houston that any advantage, I think it's huge. And so I'm standing by this prediction. 9 wins, though, with 6 games remaining. And as I said when I broke into this part of the video, this is tougher than it looks, man. This is tougher than it looks because on paper, these opponents, nothing to sneeze at. I'm not worried about Pittsburgh. I'm not worried about Washington and what they're going through. However, as you get later into the year and those little body bruises add up, and you have to go on the road 4 times in 6 weeks, and you have to go play in the cold, and you have to go play rest disadvantages, fly home early Monday morning only to turn around and fly back to Washington later on that week to play another road game. Those do add up. They do add up. And I'm giving a back-to-back surprising upset losses on the road for the Houston Texans there. Even though I especially don't like Washington, but I think that's back-to-back upsets. Losses, but still 9-4 heading into week 15, divisional game against a team that surprised everybody. Defense number 1 in the world in turnovers, or I think they were number 2 in turnover differential that last year in Jacksonville. Trevor Lawrence played out of his mind the last few weeks. We're going to be breaking down Jacksonville in a few hours here on this channel. This is the toughest one. I think, yeah. No, I think we hit the over here. I do. I think they beat Jacksonville. I think they split with Jacksonville on the season. And I think we're at 10-4 heading into at Philly, at Green Bay, home against Tennessee. I don't love Philly, and I am a Packers fan, but I don't think Green Bay is very, very good. This year, like extreme, like a world beater good. I already have Green Bay getting the loss. I'll give Houston a split. I'll give Houston a split there before we head into the final week. Tennessee at home. Houston has a little bit of a rest disadvantage. I worry that Tennessee steals this one because Houston doesn't need it. They might have the division locked up with an 11-5 record at this point, but they can't get the 1 seed type thing. Might see Davis Mills in this game. I'm going to play it safe. Give Houston the loss. Call them 11-6 on the season and safely hit this over. Will they win the division? I believe they do. I did want to find an upset division winner here, but I don't like Indy, and I think Jacksonville comes back to earth, and I have zero faith in the Tennessee Titans. So I do think Houston Texans, which are my 5th AFC team with double-digit wins at this point in the breakdown. I do think Houston comes away as the division winner here. I don't know if they're AFC title contenders because I'm not sure this offense can do it. But they should get better as the year goes on, should they not be 25th and 21st in injuries for the third consecutive year, excuse me. I think they have a chance to get rolling as the season goes along. And hopefully week 13 through 18 doesn't defeat them mentally because those first few weeks, man, I don't see anyone bothering them. Weeks 1 through 12, I really don't. This is if you agree with me, you think Houston's going to have a good season here. I would push this up and go over 10.5 and feel pretty confident about it because I think again they could have a boatload of wins. I think I had them at 9 wins in week 12, so I'd be pretty confident with the over 10.5 as well as the over 9.5 here. But that is it for breaking down the Houston Texans. Coming up in about a half hour on this channel at the top of the hour, We are breaking down the next team in alphabetical order, which is the Indianapolis Colts. Danny Dimes coming back. Could he be? Could they find the magic that they had last season? And then after that, today we are also doing the Jacksonville Jaguars, and then every single team from here until eternity. Hopefully, trying to figure this all out before we kick off. And if you want the past teams beforehand, all the A's, B's, C's, and the Green Bay Packers as well, they're on the channel. Give us a like, give us a subscribe, help this channel grow, and we shall see you on the next one. But guys, we're almost there, man. Only a few weeks left to the football season. I got to get these videos out.